Can anyone hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Deborah, I can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yes, ma'am. I can hear you.
Okay, don't.
Yeah, I'll get him in place.
Connor, no. Stay. Connor.
I got a voicemail from Bill that he's not going to be available for the meeting today. He's got a doctor's appointment. So hopefully we'll have a quorum still. I'm waiting to see on the video here who all shows up.
On the right-hand side is a list of panelists, and so we've made the members of the committee panelists. And so we have Amanda Irwin, Deborah Hines, Justin Camp. Whoops, Sean is.
Sean.
Oh, there we go. Danny. Oh, let's make Kathy a panelist. Okay. Diane Stewart. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Kathy.
Need to unmute Kathy. And unmute. Okay. Oh, we need Suzanne Gordon.
Ask you what that number is.
Suzanne, can you all hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
We have a
Okay.
512-279. Oh, 797
Can you
0638.
zoom in?
No, ma'am.
Okay, how do I do that?
On the bottom of your screen, there should,
Uh-huh.
if you, like, put your mouse close to the bottom of the screen, there may be an orange button that has a camera on it.
Got it.
Got it?
Okay, and let's see. Oh, all right.
There's Kathy.
Share my webcam.
There you are, Suzanne. I see you.
Okay, ta-da! All right, yeah. Finally.
Can you hear me? This is my screen appears.
Yeah, you're kind of cutting out.
Yeah, I
So
can't hear
maybe-
you great.
I'll try to move else in the house then. Y'all go ahead and motion. Go ahead.
Okay, so let's go ahead and start the meeting. From looking at the side on the panelists, it looks like we have a quorum if we want to go ahead and do the roll call.
Yes, ma'am. Chair Amanda Irwin,
Present.
Vice Chair Diane Stewart,
Present.
Member Justin Camp,
Present.
Member Jason Donaldson. We do have some phone numbers over on the right that we don't know who they belong to. Member Suzanne Gordon. Can you hear us, Suzanne? No, it looks like Suzanne froze.
My turn.
Member Deborah Hines.
Present.
Member Greg Posey.
Struggling to get it to work. Hopefully he jumps on soon. I know he intends to be here.
Okay, we have an 847-3517 number that doesn't have a name on it.
Okay.
And again, I know that Bill's not going to be present.
Right.
So,
So member Danny Ross,
Present.
Member Bill Tallwater is absent.
Ask the 847 that number.
Okay, so 847-3517. Can you hear us? I don't know who that one is. Okay. Okay, we do have a quorum.
Okay, great. I have not received anything regarding there being public comments.
We have received one public comment that we received by noon on yesterday.
Okay, that wasn't forwarded to me, but absolutely, let's hear the public comment.
Okay. Do you want me to read them or read it?
I mean, are the people here or?
Yes.
Yeah, well, let's let them speak then.
You see, now I don't see him.
Right on.
Oh, he's not. The only public comment I have is Brent Pulley. The only written one. So Brent Pulley had asked that if he could not get on the meeting, his public comment be read. Do you want me to do that one, or do you want to do the people in the audience first?
Let's do the people in the audience first that have signed up.
Okay. Okay, so if you would like to do your public comment, please raise the hand on the screen. We have one right here, which we will unmute. No. So you just need to unmute yourself, 512-797-0638. You are
All right.
unmuted on our end.
I think you can hear me now.
Yes, sir.
This is Radon Tilley, and I appreciate the opportunity to offer these comments. I have sent these ahead in writing, and I hope several of you have them. The comprehensive plan community survey draft deserves greater discussion, and I hope this committee will take the time you need, working with Sean and Kathy at Pegasus, to get this right. Citizens have had just a few days to offer ideas. I hope to support your work as representatives of Woodcreek and the region we affect. I'm grateful to a political science professor and public policy researcher who looked at the draft survey with me yesterday afternoon. I gathered ideas for improving its value and increasing response rate. In the spirit of doing best by everyone in Woodcreek, please consider these suggestions. Questions 1 and 2 work fine. Please move 3, 4, 5, and 6 to the end. More on that later. Please reframe question 7 as, what are your top 3 priorities to be more welcoming and informative rather than just challenging for just one word? Question 8, what do you like most? Could use some additional past proven options like affordability, family friendly, golf, natural beauty, rural setting, tranquility, as well as an open response for other. For question 10 about satisfaction levels, please invert the scale so responses aren't primed to be negative. Please separate streets from sidewalks, and please add code enforcement, community identity, internet service, communications from city. Instead of a separate question 11, please just add a comments box here to be more friendly. Skipping down to question 15 for a dog park was one of several that I recall the committee included: Airbnb, backyard hens, and front versus back sidewalks or trails. The committee should reaffirm its intentions. On question 16 about development, it leads on, however unintentionally, as a push poll. The preamble skews answers unfairly, so please simply ask which of the following without priming. Bed and breakfast should be listed as different from hotel. Senior citizen center is confusing. How about community center? Please add options and casting for clarity. And this is a list of previous options: apartments, art gallery, auto repair, bank, bowling alley, car wash, church, coffee shop, convenience store, daycare, adult, daycare child, garden supply, general merchandise, gift shop, government center, hardware, library, nursing care, park, pharmacy, shopping center, single family houses, youth center, and open green spaces. And finally, at the end, now bring in the more personal questions 3, 4, 5, and 6, so as not to turn away responses early. Please divide ages by more helpful, narrower census ranges. Under 18, 18 to 24, and so on, up to 75 and above. I'm sure others have further suggestions. I greatly appreciate the committee's thoughtful consideration of all ideas. Please cast a wide net and ensure that the questions you ask and the options you offer reflect the full range of our community as it is and seeks to be. Thank you.
Thank you for putting so much time and thought into this. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And do we have another public comment that's to be read at this point?
We have the one from Brent Pulley. If somebody else is interested and who's in the audience, if you'll raise your hand on the screen, we can address you. Would you like for me to read the written one submitted by Mr. Pulley?
Sure.
I wanted to point out that folks in the city neighborhood are very concerned about traffic, speeding, and the implementation of traffic enforcement or traffic calming solutions. Some of us now have over 1,000 cars passing in front of our homes in this neighborhood every day. Many of them are speeding or otherwise threaten our safety. This is especially true for residents on Woodcreek Drive and Brook Hollow Drive. I ask that this be included in section number 12 of the survey. Otherwise, there is no mention of this crucial issue that affects us, our families, our pets, and our property values. Further, I question the rush in formulating these key questions and the apparent lack of concern for citizen participation with this short set remote meeting at 10 a.m. only 5 business days after the previous meeting. I thank all of you for your hard work on these matters and for listening. He then sent in a supplemental additional information, which still met the deadline of by noon the previous day. Additional info, please supplement my public statement with the attached neighborhood petition with 83 signatures concerning traffic, speeding, and traffic calming. Please make this part of the record accompanying my public comments. And the petition is titled Woodcreek Traffic and Safety Alliance. We, the below signed, are concerned about the amount of traffic and the speed of the traffic through our neighborhood. This endangers our families, our quality of life, and our property values. We ask that the city of Woodcreek take steps to address this situation ASAP.
Okay, great. Let's go ahead and start on the regular agenda. And before we do, I would just like to make a comment that, at our last meeting, I think we all put in a lot of hard work and effort to discuss the survey questions. And I know a lot of people on the commission are disappointed with the fact that for some reason, the work that we've put in has been trumped by members of the city that are not actually part of the commission. I think that there's also a great concern that there is a rush at this time. So we can go ahead and discuss this as a commission, but if anyone wants to put a motion forward in any way, I would be happy to hear that as well.
I would not attempt to approve the survey today, and that we consider the significant input that we still have, so that may be entered and then considered and edited at our next meeting attempt to approve the survey.
Okay, Deborah, so are you putting a motion forward that we hold off on, will you do a formal motion?
I apologize for my inexperience is going to come into play. I'm not sure what a formal motion is. I would like to put it forward that we, that the approval of the survey be moved to the next agenda and that we spend this time discussing it primarily.
Okay, is there a second on that motion?
Excuse me, can I have her, I'm sorry, can I have her repeat the motion? It was kind of cutting out, so I'm not sure I caught it. I got approval of the survey be moved to the next agenda.
To the next meeting agenda, I think is what she's saying. And she's cutting out on my end too.
Okay, so approval of the survey be moved to the next meeting agenda. I thought there was more after that. No?
No, that's fine.
Okay, okay, so the second?
I'll second that.
Okay, Mr. King.
So can we take a roll call on that motion?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you want to have any discussion first?
Yeah,
I think it's prudent that we just make clear that we're not ready to move forward with adopting the survey at this point in time.
I only wanted to add, Amanda, that I think there's a misconception that the survey needs to be in the public eye for them to the community to review that survey prior to implementing that survey. I'm not sure exactly where that's coming from. I've definitely talked to several of my planning friends and city attorneys. That's never the case in comprehensive plans. So, City of Woodcreek, if you disagree with that from a legal standpoint, you need to let us know right now. But that's my perspective. I wanted you to just also know, you guys have been selected by the council to represent the community. And I am not at all opposed to, extending this. It will delay the schedule. It'll push back the schedule. But I just wanted you to know that moving forward throughout this whole project, you all are empowered by the city council. You've been appointed by the city council. There's definitely a lot of public information things that we will be addressing and adhering to. But on the survey, I think it's great to incorporate feedback that you all have gotten from your friends and your own. And, we're not in a rush to do that. Just know that it will push other things back. For example, the survey day next week, that's obviously going to have to be moved. And we'll have to make, some of the other adjustments in the schedule. But I just wanted you all to be aware of those two things. That's all. Thank you.
Can we go ahead and take a vote on the motion?
Yes, ma'am. Deborah Hines,
Yeah.
Justin Camp, Justin, can you hear me? Okay, he's doing a thumbs up signal there.
Sorry, yes.
Okay, thanks. Danny Ross,
Yes.
Greg Posey,
Yay.
Suzanne Gordon.
What is the motion?
The motion is to move the approval of the survey to the next meeting agenda.
And I'm sorry, I missed a few minutes because I had to get to another computer. Is there a specific reason?
Suzanne, I think that there's just issues with the fact that the hard work that we put in on the last meeting, a lot of those questions have been removed. And I think that there's concern from people on the commission and from the public that those questions have been removed. And then also that people feel like it's being rushed and that they want more discussion about what should be included in the survey.
Okay, so it's choosing whether or not to leave it as it is, the survey as is, or whether to go forward without making final decisions till next week. But there have been no changes to the current way that the survey's written, right? What we have attached here. Correct?
That's correct. We have not made any changes to it yet.
Okay, then I recommend that we accept it as it is. So that would be a nay to delaying.
Thank you. Vice Chair Stewart?
So we're saying to move the approval to the next meeting agenda and take this time today to talk about the input that we got. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Aye.
And Chair Amanda Irwin?
Aye.
So that's everybody. Yeah.
Okay.
So motion passes, yeah.
So I believe then the motion's carried forward, and so we could spend the rest of this meeting discussing the survey. So hopefully we can get to a point that we can approve the survey at our next meeting. So then we're just about a week behind in scheduling. That would be ideal. So let's go ahead and talk about it.
Amanda, hi. I would like to try to think. I'm sorry, I lost my thought, and I will ask my question later. Go right ahead.
Okay. Does anyone want to say anything? Or I mean, I can sort of talk about some of the concerns that I've heard.
I am concerned.
And
About,
let's identify ourselves, because a lot of video is not working, and so we know who's talking.
okay, this is Deborah. I guess the public comments I submitted yesterday didn't make it by a noon timeline, and I suppose they were not going to be read. Is that why?
I'm sorry, I didn't receive those before. I haven't seen them. I didn't receive them before noon or before 4 when I left.
Okay, I sent them at 4 yesterday via email to Kathy and you for today's meeting. I was unaware that there was a cutoff and communicated earlier in the week that I was gathering information. So I copied the city staff on that email as well, and Kathy on both. And if I can't read them, that's fine. I do hope that there are questions and the things submitted that we can consider those now at least.
Of course.
Okay. What were you going to say, Amanda?
Yes, that's what we're talking about. Is we're talking about what we want to add to the survey or change on the survey.
Okay. Great. So I have a copy of what Ray Don, Mr. Tilley, just read out loud, so we can address that. But I also have printouts. I'm not sure if you all received them in your inbox from Kathy and Linda. And I can email them to you. So I realize this is going to be a little bit difficult with me reading them, but if you guys would like to, first off, I would like to reinstate the 3 questions that were removed. I've sort of tried to recreate what we made in the last meeting. And so I'm going to read that now. Number 1, if the city was able to budget for and pursue walking trails or a sidewalk, would you prefer this along the front of your yard beside the roadway or in the back alongside the golf course path? With a follow-up, are there other options for consideration on the location of a trail or sidewalk? Number 3, a follow-up. If the city pursues creating increased pedestrian mobility, would you prefer this in the form of a traditional ADA compliant sidewalk made of pavement and minimum 4-foot width, or a gravel trail? Are there any thoughts? I'm pausing for thoughts, comments.
I think those would provide some more detailed information about people's ideas. Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else? I'll keep moving forward otherwise. I'm going to take pauses in between each section, if that's all right. Okay, number 4. This is concerning backyard chickens. Would you be in support of allowing citizens the liberty to raise backyard chickens totaling up to 6 hens, no roosters, in an enclosed coop? Please rate that support. 0, strongly disagree. 5, strongly in favor of. That question is significantly important to me on a personal level because a citizen showed up and requested it, and I think that's of value. In addition, there has been a petition signed by 863 people requesting backyard chickens be allowed. I included that supplemental information in the file I sent Kathy and Linda. And again, I'd be happy to forward all of this at a later date.
And to clarify, we actually had that question, Sean. I know you phrased some kind of format for that question for the survey at our last meeting, and everyone seemed agreeable to that. There was zero opposition to that question being included in the survey during the commission meeting, and because of that, I think that that's a huge issue. Citizens showed up. No one on the commission had a problem with that being included on the survey. So I think we need some form of that question on the survey. And I never actually saw the wording of what yours was, but you seem to have came up with one at the meeting.
If I may, Amanda, just want to, because I think this is important just to kind of talk through how this happened. Just moving forward, we all have to be able to trust each other in terms of this process, right? I apologize for the sort of uproar, I guess, I've seen, in the email channels about this. After the meeting, the city mentioned that this was more of a land use issue, or a land development code issue, I should say, a code issue, and that it may be a better question to ask before we start rewriting the land development code. Same thing with the Airbnb question, and which I do understand that perspective, and I would agree. And you should know too, we do intend on creating another survey on sort of specific land use, land development code issues prior to start writing that. So I think that was the reasoning. Brenton, I think now would be a really good time for you to speak on this if you disagree that this question should not be in the survey.
Okay, can everyone hear me? Thumbs up. So basically, this issue has been brought up several times on the backyard chickens. We did receive a comment from the same individual that had a public comment about that. Having backyard chickens. We never did receive a survey results from that individual. Also, there had a mayor's coffee, virtual, discussing backyard chickens. There was several people in attendance. We had a gentleman from Wimberley that actually spoke about having chickens in the backyard. Then it had been discussed several times in public, but we have never had it presented to the city council as a request to have it discussed at a council meeting. Of course, I go back to that petition that I guess someone has now with over the 800 signatures. That has never been presented to the city at all, so it can be validated as to whether those signatures actually reside within the city of Woodcreek. Therefore, then when you look at what the comprehensive plan is, and I'm going to go back to what Sean said, was the comprehensive plan is basically for zoning and that type of our growth and that. The backyard chickens is actually in a completely different chapter of our codes dealing with animals. And therefore, I agree with Sean that it should be at a subsequent survey land use. Okay, and then also I'll address the Airbnb situation. The city has discussed Airbnbs. There was one that was permitted within the city that they were not complying with what the permit was for them to operate. There's been several discussions about that. The legislature had passed a bill stating there has to be, we have to allow Airbnbs. However, that was presented in 2018. There is no legislation that says the city has to allow Airbnbs. And the council had several hearings on it. And the discussion was on one that was actually existing. The city does have one small area that does allow short-term rentals. It's defined in our zoning code as that. And so the city council and the planning and zoning commission both have explored this situation numerous times. And it's always been commented, and it's always been, we do not want to allow that Airbnb in the community. It goes back to, again, land use and not actually, it'll be in the review when Texas does review of our zoning.
If I may interject, please, everyone, this is Deborah Hines again. I'd like to go back to the chicken one because I don't feel like we were finished discussing that first off. And that a citizen member did request that at council meetings, and the mayor did not put it on the agenda. And I understand what you're saying, that potentially the question would be better posed at a later date. However, I disagree. I feel like the more information we can gather now and the more input we can gather now is beneficial to us. I don't really see the point in sidelining the conversation until a later date. I understand that it's a land usage idea, and that eventually the planning and zoning committee will take it up. However, I mean, if we need to take a vote on the chicken question, I think we should do that.
And Sean, I'm just looking for some more clarification about what you're saying, how you separated these things out. Can you explain that? Because that was never explained to us, and I think that that would help people understand. Because I still really don't quite understand, to be honest. So there's going to be a separate land use survey that's going to be sent out to the citizens?
Well, so after the meeting, this is something that Britt and I talked about, and I tend to agree with him that, I mean, we can definitely, and we hadn't necessarily intended to do it, but I think it's probably a good idea, and we've done this in other comprehensive plans, where kind of near the end of the comprehensive plan, and before you start working on land development code, there's going to be specific things that feedback from the community would be really helpful for you and the planning commission to see. And it could be, I'm not saying this is it, because I know this is a hot button topic. It could be about impervious cover. It could be, shit, did anybody laugh on that? Again, hey, not recommending that, not recommending that. It could be about chicken coops. It could be about requiring a permit for short-term rentals. All of those things are kind of categorized or under the heading of land development code, because those things would be addressed in land development code. That being said, you know, Deborah's points are well taken, and you know, I mean, Brenton, unless you can come up with a really good reason, there's probably not it's probably not a big deal for us to ask that question in this current survey. If we need to get more clarity later, we can ask that in another survey too. But Brenton? Okay,
this is Brenton again. And when you look at the backyard hen situation, there are several areas of the community that are on 1 acre tracts. There's some that are on less than, I'd say, well, 10,000 square feet on their property.
You are really
many areas in the community that if you just say 6 backyard chickens, then you need to find more about which areas are more suited toward it. And so I think it's more than just a question saying, do you want backyard hens allowed in the city of Woodcreek? Because there are several things that would have to be taken into consideration. And if you look at the land development code, or right now this would be under the animal code, there's also several other items that need to be discussed because we do have citizens that have requested potbelly pigs. We have people that have requested other farm animals. And so, and the code actually now says restricts that you cannot have fat. And so that's why I think that since it is such a big topic, just a one question that says, would you want backyard chickens, 6 backyard chickens in an enclosed coop? That's not definitive enough.
If I may speak, this is Deborah again. That sounds like the perfect question and follow-up for exactly what Sean was just describing. If we get feedback that people don't want chickens on this survey, we drop it. If we get feedback that people are actually pretty interested in it, then we get those nitpicky, like, hey, you're going to have to follow impervious coverage rules on the coop. You're going to have to submit that information saying you can install a coop, that you have enough land to take care of these chickens. I mean, that's exactly the kind of follow-up that would be relevant later, in my opinion. I think that's great feedback. It does not negate putting the question on now. And I think the fact that are hot button issues, especially if we want to jump ahead to Airbnb, for example, that they get on this survey and the public is actually clearly allowed to voice how they're feeling on these, and that we stop speaking for them. Because, you know, the squeaky wheels get a lot of attention. If people can attend council meetings in the middle of the day, that gets a lot of attention. However, we've never collectively voiced as a community how we feel about these things. And I think that's very relevant. And like I said, if we need to take a vote on the chicken question, I'm sure we could. However, I would really strongly recommend that we not sideline questions right now. There's no harm in making this survey a little bit longer. It's very short. There's no harm in casting a broad net and then more definite questions. And then furthermore, you know, a lot of the work I've seen on this is done in cities. And while Woodcreek has the name city in the title, and we're also a neighborhood. And based on previous surveys, we were voted as primarily rural. I cannot say that word appropriately. I apologize. I have trouble with ours. But I think considering that perception of our community as a rural neighborhood makes this question even more relevant, because, and then you have the addition of the pandemic, you know, people are home more, maybe they would like this. I don't know, I can't speak for them. I think the question's relevant and should remain.
Well, and if I may add, I think that putting these hot button issues on our questionnaire will actually garner more interest in taking the survey, honestly. I mean, if people in the community, because people do have very strong feelings one way or the other about these issues. I mean, if we can get more people to come out and actually take the survey, I think that that's a good thing. And I personally just don't see the harm of including it now.
Amanda.
Yes.
Oh, hi. I want to speak next. I think we have 2 people that have our hands up. So after you're finished.
Oh,
I'm
sorry. I did not see the hand up situation. And
well,
forgive me. I usually use Zoom. This is the first time I've ever been on the platform. So
I just found how to do that. Yeah. So I have a comment on if we add any questions to the survey, that we need to word them in such a way as to make them, you know, for instance, like right now, chickens are not allowed in Woodcreek. So, you know, I think that's a little bit different than us adding a dog park, which was my pet project, because I don't think a fenced dog park would be like against city code right now. I could be wrong, but I see that as a little bit different. So if we ask the question, I don't know. I'm trying to say if the current code was changed, would you be interested in having chickens? And that there's other consideration. Yeah. So make it short, like a short question. The shorter the better in that kind of question, in my opinion, if we add it.
Absolutely. I think that really makes sense, Diane.
And also one other thing is if we do try to, you know, this is a working session, obviously. I don't have any problem with us scheduling a meeting to approve all of these changes, like, so that we don't get behind on our schedule. So just want to make that.
Okay, I'm sorry. This is Brendan. I need to question Sean about this. So if this is available for other outside sources to actually comment whether the city of Woodcreek should have backyard chickens, how will these committee, planning and zoning, and the city council, if it goes that far, how will they know whether it was the citizens of Woodcreek that actually said yes or no, or was it affected by Wimberley, Woodcreek North, or anyone else going to complete the survey?
Yeah, that's a good question. The way that we have the survey formatted right now is, one of the first questions is to ask people, are they a resident of Woodcreek? Do they live in Wimberley? And then also to self-identify where they are via that map that Kathy inserted into it. And I think it's what E, Kathy, if you choose E, it means you live outside of the city of Wimberley. I think that's the best way to do it. And as we talked about last time, I really don't think you're going to get that many people outside of Woodcreek to participate in the survey. But if we do, I think this is one way to help differentiate those responses. And we can definitely tease those responses out to reflect kind of what the Wimberley residents feel about the issues.
Suzanne, do you have something to say? I see now you have your hand up.
Yes, I do. I'm sorry. I'm at a different computer now, and it's not mine. But I agree with what Diane said. If we do include these items that are obviously code violations, that be made specific, and it be just a short, would you like these if the code was revised? Because you don't want people to think that if they say yes, they're going to get to do it. And Deborah, I'd like to ask, you mentioned this list of people, this 866 people. I've asked before to see the list and to know whether or not these are indeed residents of the city of Woodcreek. Can you answer that?
Yeah, I've provided the link to the petition. You are more than welcome to follow up on that. I sent that in to Linda and Kathy yesterday around 4 p.m. And so if that's something you want to follow up at a later date, I don't know that the petition is as relevant now, other than I just included it to kind of sort of remind us that there are a significant amount of people who have put in input in the past about how they feel. Now, whether or not we need to verify that petition at a later date is a different. And I definitely agree that we could easily add sort of a subtitle, possible changes in code above these three questions to indicate, or these two specifically, right? Not the sidewalk, but to indicate that these would involve changing current city code. I mean, that's such a great idea. It's an easy fix.
Yes, that be the preface to those two. That would be good, and that it be less. Also about the sidewalks, you mentioned offering them different options about what kind of sidewalks, and I don't know whether the city can do that. Brenton could probably answer that better as to what kind. Do we have to be ADA approved if we put something down? That's so. We don't want to give people false hopes about that they can make these choices when in fact they really can't. And I don't know that. It's not my area of expertise at all. But
it's a great point, Suzanne.
Yes, ma'am. I think the wording of the question would help with that. For example, if the city was able to do this, if they pursued this, you know what I mean? I think that sort of implies to people, and we could bold that or underline it.
Well, but if it's not permitted by law, or if law requires us to do it a certain way, the sidewalks, for instance, then, or that we can't infringe on certain rights of the golf course or the citizen that owns that property, or what's ADA appropriate, then why would we even put it out there if we're offering them to say yes, they want something that we can't legally do?
Okay, I'm going to keep talking. I don't want to run over anybody, and I know you can't see me, so I can't raise my hand. So I did a little homework, and Brenton did state in the last meeting that there is a 10-foot right-of-way for this very purpose in front of all of our properties, yet it is not required or mandated we use that full 10 feet. I cannot find that anywhere in Hays County or our public records. I did include the ADA information because Greg did speak up and sort of inquire about that. If we're considering pedestrian mobility and our population is, you know, around 50% over the age of 60, then kind of getting that feeling is important. And I agree, we don't want to imply this can be done. That's why if it says if it could be done, what would you like, right? And so it's just a guidepost. They can vote. And then I think that's where the city transparency comes into play of, you know, you guys gave great input. These are our limitations, and this is why we're not being able to move forward on it. And again, sounds like that would be great follow-up questions and development later date that Sean's talking about when it does come down to the land usage. And that's just my opinion. And I'm not trying to run this meeting. I just do have this whole document prepared. And I'm sorry that was not sent out to everybody in advance.
Deborah, if I may, I don't think Kathy ever received that email, and we're flying a little bit blind, not seeing these questions. It's not a big deal, but how many more questions do you have, just to give us a frame of reference?
I have confirmation the email was sent. I'm not really sure why Linda and Kathy did not receive it. And I sent it at 4 yesterday. I also shared it with Amanda and Justin as well. And I didn't have anyone else in contact, or I would have pushed it out further. And I did, you know, tell Kathy I was sending it in, so to look for it. And I can, you know what, I'll just go, I'm going to jump on and send it now. And if
Deborah, let me ask something. I don't have anybody's emails and personal information other than Diane's and Danny's, actually. And I think it would be great if we all had each other's email addresses. And so when we have an idea that's outside of the meetings, maybe we can communicate and be more ready in the future. I was trying to think, I was talking to Diane last night because she's the only phone number I have. So would that be a possibility, Amanda, that either someone could start this and get all of our email addresses if anyone doesn't mind sharing that.
Absolutely. I've been thinking the same exact thing.
I'm blind.
Amanda, excuse me, can I say something, City Secretary?
Yes.
Yeah, so remember the open meetings rules.
Absolutely.
That the agenda has to be posted 72 hours. There are legal requirements for where and when it's posted, and that no agenda topics can be changed after that time. In addition, that we could receive information at the city during our regular business hours before, and then with Amanda's approval, send that out. But y'all have to be very, very careful that you are not discussing and having information outside of a public open meeting and making decisions about it. That would be because remember our training the other day.
Yes.
Thank you, Linda.
You're welcome.
I have to be reined in.
And Diane, do you have your hand up? Or was that from earlier?
Who?
Diane, I see we've got our hand
Oh,
up.
yes. I was just going to make a point that, you know, I really don't know that the sidewalk question really should be on there. But even if it ever gets on there, I think it's important to say that maybe only in certain sections of the city do we really need that. And that could be obviously debated. But like, for instance, on Woodcreek Drive, you literally can't, walk your dog. There's just, unless you kind of go along the edge of the golf course in the back. And of course, that's, kind of going over sometimes the boundary, that we really should go. So anyway, that was just my point. The only point is that maybe, that would be a something for the next committees to decide, because maybe it's not every street in the city needs it. So thank you.
If I may also, Amanda, just piggyback on that comment, it is an incredibly expensive undertaking to put sidewalks, incredibly expensive, and the city doesn't have the money in the budget, period. And so I forget exactly what the wording was that Deborah used, but we'll look at that and kind of make it very clear to people that the city would need to be relying on external funding sources to ever make that happen.
Absolutely. I think that that's a really important point. I mean, and everyone has sort of been saying this, and I think that it's something that we need to put on the survey is expectation management, right? And I think we talked about this at the last meeting with what would you like to see as far as businesses in Woodcreek? Same thing. I mean, we shouldn't, put things on there that will never actually be built. What's the point of that? But it seems like, from what I'm gathering here, everyone seems to sort of be in agreement that we should put some kind of subsection about land use changes on the survey and just make clear that, if the code was changed, would you support backyard chickens? If the code was changed, would you support Airbnb where you live in Woodcreek? Since there are some areas that do already. Again, I just don't see the harm of putting these hot button issues on the survey. In my mind, maybe there'll be more people that will come because they hate these issues and they want to, actually take the survey. So I don't see the harm with it personally.
Well, Kathy, we can reorganize those questions and provide appropriate headings and some description before the questions.
This is Deborah again. Kathy and Linda, I just re-forwarded that email, and it has the timestamp of 4:36 on it, just to confirm with you. And it's in the email again that it was sent around 4:30. I apologize. I didn't realize city closed at 4. I thought it closed at 5. That's my bad. And I did request that agenda items be made on Monday. For example, approving the survey flyer. However, my request and that email was not replied to, and I understand that that's all right. You know what I mean? I was concerned about having these items on the agenda and was attempting on Monday to address that.
Yeah, so the agenda was posted Friday, and at the top of the agenda, it gives you the rules for when to submit public comments. Is at the top of the meeting notice on the agenda. So that's the legal language that we have to follow for that. And then the second page of the agenda tells you it was posted Friday at 4:30, along with the packet.
Oh yeah, I know when it was. I just was saying, I believe we have 72 hours to make changes beforehand to make changes if needed.
Oh, no ma'am. So in order to make changes, the meeting agenda would have to actually be legally revised and legally reposted, along with the, everything would have to be redone legally.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
It's like you can't change what's already posted unless you start over.
Yes, thank you.
And also, this is Brendan again, but Deborah, I just received the email. And I love how you basically listed who's made what comment, but to legally have any record of this, we would have to have the actual email from them that they made that comment, not just a synopsis of everything that everybody submitted.
Yes, sir, and I will be submitting that as well. I am aware. I just submitted the synopsis as a tool for assisting in this meeting.
One more, I guess, just caution that comes from the IT people that we've had over the years is that when a petition is submitted, we actually need the petition. Asking us to follow a link to an outside place that we don't know where it goes is how, hacking and spyware gets installed on government computers. So we don't do that. Okay. So the actual petition would need to be submitted to the city.
Yes, ma'am. I will handle that.
Thanks, ma'am.
And sorry, this is Kathy Velarde. Deborah, I just checked again. I did not receive your email yesterday, and I still haven't received the one you forwarded. Just so you know. And for clarification and also the strategy moving forward, when is the latest date? Can we get all of the additional questions in order to compile them and post them so that they're available on time for next week's meeting? I guess that's a question for the city.
We need to post the agenda Friday afternoon.
Friday afternoon. So I'm understanding that anybody who has additional questions for consideration should send them, I suppose, to me. Do you need them by a certain time on Friday?
It took about, because of our new technology and our new website and our new meeting stuff, it took about 2.5 hours to prepare that and get it posted last Friday. So really by noon is pushing it. In addition, we're also posting our city council meeting next week. So we have 2 meetings to prepare for packet and posting tomorrow. So ASAP.
So is it fair to ask the committee send me by the end of today any questions, additional questions for consideration so that I can compile those and send those to the city by tomorrow noon?
Well, Kathy, I think the ones that we've discussed, we don't need to resend, right? Like the chickens and the Airbnb and all of that. Can that be included or drafted?
Yes, we need to draft those questions and submit them to the city. And I think there are some additional questions that I haven't seen yet that we need to take a look at and make sure they're posted.
I would be happy to print this off and hand deliver it. We sent the email. It is your email I've been communicating with Kathy at, like I said, I believe. So I'm not really sure on there because as I said, I'd be happy to those time receipts and kind of a question of responsibility.
Deborah, I wouldn't worry so much about that. I also just realized this morning I'm not getting a lot of emails, even outside of this project, and Kathy, that might be the issue. We'll get that resolved.
Thank you. All right, would y'all like to move I can read the Airbnb one. As I said, I just rephrased it, or we can just move forward.
How many more questions do you have?
People submitted quite a bit. I have 12 essentially of my own. I understand public commentary isn't normally taken on this, and when the public history was shared with the public on the website and sort of like as a matter of public record, I did share it in the community, which is where this is coming from, and people did speak up and back, which I decided to start compiling it so we could take it in. And sort of, I think there's some really relevant stuff I could skip through, like for example, the traffic calming could be relevant. There's stuff about questions about parks. There's additions and edits. For example, Wimberley is spelled incorrectly on number. Add to an ER, and that got several votes. I think hotel and this on number separate. So it's just a lot of that are
Deborah, you're cutting out, at least for me.
Yeah, Deborah, I'm having a really hard time hearing you as well.
I apologize. My phone was sitting on the speaker. So what I have here is a lot of edits. So minor edits, and we could jump through those quickly. And then we do have a significant amount of additional questions. So if you want to go through the minor edits today and then have the questions later, or I think whatever you guys want to do.
I'd suggest, just in the interest of time, we make those minor edits, and I would skip to any new questions that you have.
Okay. All right. So submitted
okay.
by Monica Roscoe. Number 1, would you be in favor of a community playscape for families in Woodcreek? Number 2, would you be in favor of a park with outdoor adult exercise equipment? 3, would you be in favor of a community pool? That's it from her. No comment? Would you like me to move on?
I mean, and Sean, how realistic is getting a community pool? Just out of curiosity. I mean, again, for expectation management, is that something we should even throw out there? I mean, because it could potentially be a good solution instead of other people building pools on their property, et cetera, but I just don't know.
Yeah, I would say, again, it's a money issue. The big grants, and I'm familiar with, like the Texas Parks and Wildlife grants, it still requires, I think, at least a 50% local match. So, you'd be talking about probably $5 million, $2.5 million, or whatever that city would need to put out, depending upon the size of that kind of a facility. So, I think it can be realistic. I don't know about land and where that might go. That's another question. But I mean, I don't think there's anything. I don't think there's any hurt in anything wrong in asking that question.
Okay.
I wonder if we might be able to consolidate in some way, because sort of like, would you be interested in any of the following? Because I think you listed 3 different things, like a playscape, a pool. So it's not 3 separate questions, but we put them together in some way.
Awesome. I agree. People could rate them, you know, on of the following park types. We could even include the dog park in there. People could rate which of these would you prefer? Which of these do you not have a preference? You know, that same sort of rating, and consolidate all the parks together.
All right, let's continue with the other questions.
So on number 8, my neighbor Kay Betts asked us to include value and cost of housing. So this is when people were rating sort of what they like about Woodcreek. She asked that value and cost of housing be added. On number 12, Brent Pulley and Lori Fisher requested the traffic calming solutions, and then I developed a question for that later that we can go over now. So I developed a question that said, common traffic calming efforts include the following: narrow streets, pinch points, stop signs, speed bumps, speed humps, speed platforms, road material changes, traffic diversions such as medians or islands, curb treatments. And so it's a whole list of stuff, and I thought people could rate those on what, you know, if the city pursued traffic calming efforts, what of these do we like? And some of these already exist in Woodcreek. For example, we already have narrow streets. But, you know, if the city's improving the road and all of a sudden they want to start expanding it, I think that feedback on, no, we want to keep our narrow streets is relevant, personally. And so that's the traffic calming one. What do y'all think?
I think we need to put something on there to address the speed. I mean, I agree with that citizen comment today. I mean, I think that that's another hot button issue that people care about that will get people to take the survey. I just personally don't know the best way to phrase the question, and I would leave that up to Pegasus.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. Brenton, do you have any comments or suggestions on that particular question? Because I think you guys are starting to look at that a little now.
Brenton, but right now the city is under contract with our engineers that are also looking at the maintenance of the roads, and also they'll be presenting at another meeting. I have no problem with being on there. Our roadways are narrow right now. The widest road we have is 22 foot wide. The rest of them are 18 or less. Usually, Woodcreek Drive is a little bit wider. What our traffic data that's been studied by our engineers and also by local law enforcement shows that there's probably 0.01% of the community where people are actually going over 35 miles an hour. So 0.01%. So, and the thing is, it's a perception. I have no problem with somebody, the question basically addressing that. I don't know how the city council will address it in the future as they go forward in looking at the road repairs. But it is a topic that's being discussed at this time, and I don't know if it should be on the agenda, on the survey, just because it is a topic the council is addressing or discussing.
So I'm confused. With public feedback not direct that discussion or not? I'm not really following.
Well, my question is, if the council is actively already looking at what's going on in the community with traffic flows, with the speed radar signs, and so a question about that, it can be on there. It's just that the perception is there is speeding, but the data shows it's not. And so, but the council is well aware of it. It's being discussed. So I don't know if it'd be prudent to even put it on the agenda because this is something on the survey, because this is something that's being proactively discussed by our city council. We've been working on the data since before COVID. Now looking at the data that's coming in after the Blue Hope School opened up. So, it's an ongoing situation. But if y'all want to leave it on the survey as, for if people want traffic calming devices, but then it goes back to defining what it should be. But we are actively working with our engineers on that anyway.
Does anyone have any comments about that or input?
I might say, I think it's worth the citizenry knowing that the city is currently looking at this. And I think we can maybe add some of that language to that question prior to asking people what their preferences would be about that kind of stuff. And it seems to me, Brenton, like, the feedback, if I was on council, I'd still be interested in seeing the feedback from the citizenry about some of those topics. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, like I stated, I don't have a problem going on there. I just want everyone to know that it is actively being researched.
Gotcha. And, I actually think, even though we'll try and keep the questions short and succinct, I think it is helpful to add a little bit of context so it's educational for the people taking it. So, okay.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to in order. After that, Lou Joseph would like a question about future city council meetings. What time of day would be preferred for them to be held? I know in the past they've been held in the evening. That was switched to during the day. And I know there was some facility issues with COVID that sort of prompted that switch. But I think moving forward, the citizens are concerned that they cannot attend meetings if they are working individuals, or like, for example, me, a mother, I can't find free, childcare. Anyway, so perhaps some question about future city council meetings and when they're held, an appropriate time of day.
I would not agree that question is appropriate in a comprehensive plan survey.
Okay.
And I agree with Sean. Does anyone else feel that should be included? I mean, I just don't see how the government runs themselves is something that, is included on this. Does anyone have issues with that? Does anyone think we need to include this on the survey, or? Okay, I don't see any hands. Okay.
All right. This series of questions was submitted by Chris Brumert. He's asking, during different citywide emergency events, do you understand what to do, where to go, and who to contact?
I think that's outside of the scope as well.
Okay.
Yep.
Number 2, what originally attracted you to move to Woodcreek?
Is that duplicative, Kathy, of one of the earlier questions, or is it add additional value, would you say?
Yes, I think we get to that question. It's worded slightly differently, but we do, what is it that you most like about Woodcreek, or something of that nature, which I would say speaks to why somebody moved. Family friendly, the natural beauty, that sort of thing.
Okay, moving on. Please rate the satisfaction effectiveness of these areas of your Woodcreek city government. And so there's sub questions here. How do you prefer contact with the city of Woodcreek? What is your satisfaction with access to public meetings? Which again, maybe a satisfaction question would address Lou. And then timely and clear communication from the city. If you have interacted with the city of Woodcreek government, how would you rate your overall experience? So these are all sort of tied to that other question, rating our feelings about the government.
I would also, I hate to keep beating this drum, but I would also say this is a comprehensive plan. I think that's information that is not really pertinent to a comprehensive plan. And I think it, you know, if the city wants to send another survey out asking about, you know, issues the citizenry has with how the city operates, I think that's something the city can do, but that would be my suggestion.
Does anyone disagree with that? Okay.
Okay. Then so we get to the editing of question 16, and there's a couple. So like I said, Bonnie Cran and Laura Kay asked for number 16 to add an ER, clinic, or hospital. Hospital is obviously massive, but one of them specifically used that word, which is why I included it. But I do personally think an ER should potentially be listed there, as they are in other cities, and we do have an elderly population that could be relevant.
I think that's a good idea. I don't know, Sean, is that realistic?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fine. You know, I'm looking at that question. We have medical offices, but you want to keep that as a separate, like H is emergency services clinic or something like that.
Yeah, I think they're different.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Question number 10, as I said, Wimberley is misspelled. I mentioned that earlier, but I think I was breaking up. That was an edit by Aurora LeBron, a council member. These are questions I personally came up with because after our meeting last time, you know, like I've mentioned, I'm a novice at this, I'm learning. And so I had like a brainstorm of ideas after we left. Number 16, I would like us to consider removing the leading phrase regarding tax benefits. I think that I understand the purpose of it, but I'm concerned that people might vote yes on bed and breakfast thinking that it could generate us way more money, you know, and I just think it's a little bit leading, but that's maybe nitpicky.
I think it's important, though, to educate people, because that's not something that I would know personally without having that information. And again, I think, I don't know, does anyone agree with what Deborah's saying? That they don't like the phraseology of that? Okay.
All right. And then on number 16, as I said earlier when my phone was breaking up, I think it's pertinent to separate hotel and bed and breakfast, since they are two very different establishments that would have a massively different footprint on the community. I don't, you know, somebody might be nay hotel, but pro bed and breakfast.
That's true.
I'd also like to see food truck court added. I think those are an easy way to bring food options into our community, and you know, they could generate money to the city if the city was renting the land to them.
That sounds like a good question to me.
I agree.
All right.
Yeah.
Moving forward.
Can I throw in one other thing to clarify? Perhaps taking out senior citizen center and just calling it community center in question 16.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Are we good to move forward?
But let me, I'd like to address some of Mr. Tilley's suggestions. And I've got this in front of me. I know I can make this available to anybody who would like to see it. I think I'll just kind of throw out some of the additional options, casting for clarity here, without trying to overlap. I think bank, auto repair, car wash, coffee shop, gift shop, general merchandise, garden supply, government center, library, nursing care, park, youth center, and open green spaces. And that's all.
I think parks could potentially be left off since we addressed parks elsewhere, but I love all of that.
I think those are good too. The only two things I'm thinking about though, and I'm looking at this question a little bit more is, if we're talking about increasing the tax base, a community center, a youth center, and convention center do not provide any tax revenue. So we may need to rejigger that question a little bit and maybe have a separate question, or maybe add those particular items to a parks and recreation question. What are your thoughts about that?
Yes, that makes sense.
Okay.
Does anyone disagree with that, or?
No, I don't disagree.
Okay, let's continue.
So the next question I generated actually came directly from a BUTA survey, and I did include that in my original email as a supporting document. But it was a question about quality of life. So this rates essentially, how do you feel of the city of Woodcreek as a place to live, a place to raise children, a place to work, a place to retire, overall quality of life, and the city as an inclusive community? And then there's a follow-up to that in the BUTA survey that says, based on the city taxes you pay, do you think the value of these what do you think the value of these services you receive is?
That's an interesting question. Does anyone have thoughts about that?
I'd say those sound like decent questions, yeah.
All right, again, so that's on the page 5 of the supporting document I sent in. Now it's actually page 6 if you just open the document. They didn't number their cover letter, I believe. Moving on, then I asked a question, again, coming from the BUTA survey, page 16. It says, support for city events and utilization of city amenities. What types of events or festivals would you like to see in a park? And it lists free community concerts, performances, ticketed concerts, arts and crafts festivals, food and drink events, family-friendly events. And then it sort of asked, in the last 12 months, have you used any of these type of areas? And it lists parks specific to BUTA, so I think we would need to obviously edit that to our own community.
I think that the using could be relevant. I think it might be outside of the scope asking, what kind of activities would you like to see, because we don't even have the actual places to do that, right? I mean, that seems like another step further. Okay. I don't know, that could just be my thoughts. Does anyone else have thoughts about that?
No, I think you're right. If we were able to do some of those things, we would have to, maybe the triangle down by Brook Hollow, we would say that that's our event area, and we do some updates to it. And you can schedule it possibly for your own use by one of your own, like Wimberley clubs or something like that. But I think you're right. We don't really even have a place to do that yet.
Okay.
Maybe putting a question about having a place like that would have a place on the survey. But
oh, I like that. Like a future place to have these things. Would you like to see that under the parks?
Yeah.
Does anyone have any more input about that?
All right, y'all, believe it or not, we're getting really close to the end. So here we go. Rate your level of civic engagement and participation. Thoughts?
I don't know that has much value to what we're doing.
Okay. So I'll strike the next one. Would you like to be more involved? And if so, what do you think the biggest deciding factor in your involvement is? But we'll strike both of those. Would you like to see the city create more community events? Kind of ties back to what we were talking about. So that could be a standalone question, I guess, or not.
I think if anything, it would just be, would you like to see an area where there could be these events?
I had a question specifically concerning Waste Connection service. Right now, they only service recycling bi-weekly, and I understand this is to limit traffic by the truck. However, I have now had to purchase 2 cans for that reason, and that's fine. That's a personal matter, but I was wondering if we might want to ask the citizens if they would like to increase that service.
This is Brendan. Would you add in there that if to increase the service would also increase their bill?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And our current contract is over when?
2.5 years.
Yeah. So our current franchise agreement goes 2.5 more years.
So 2.5 more years.
Under the current franchise agreement, yes.
Okay. Do y'all have feelings? Do we want to put the question with that information or bypass? I don't.
That sort of seems kind of redundant because it asks you about how you feel about trash and recycling collection on question 10 already.
Okay.
I agree.
I also had rate the level of care and upgrades needed on common right-of-way spaces like medians and public curbside land. What, if any, would you like to see improved or changed? No comments, or can y'all hear me?
Yeah, it just seems like another question that we were asking earlier. Maybe not.
Right. Like, I definitely think we need to, get as many questions as possible, but I think we also need to be careful about there being too many questions, right, that overlap. And just because, I mean, we are going to have to eat the cost of printing some of these out, right? And I don't know the research behind it, but I would imagine just, people have short attention spans, and filling things out, truthfully and carefully. The longer these questions are, the less likely that will be, I would imagine.
Okay. So the last section of the questions came from previous surveys. So I think these were redundant, and I only included them as a way to sort of help guide the writing of any questions we added. So I think we could skip that. And then the only other thing that I have in paper is the reordering suggested by Mr. Tilley. He suggested we put the more personal question to the bottom so as not to scare people off. Or that's what the feedback from the professional he involved gave. Did we have any thoughts on that?
I think that makes sense, and I think that that's really cool that Mr. Tilley went out of his way to engage, an expert that does things like this. And Sean, perhaps we could forward you, because you don't have it. Mr. Tilley sent me in my email box this morning all of his things that he read out loud, and there's some really good points there, just like phraseology and different things like that. And I know obviously y'all are very much experts on this as well, and that's why you've been hired to do this. So perhaps we could just forward that to you, and you could look at that and pick and choose what you think is relevant or helpful.
Okay. Please
yeah, I
do.
agree that this is Justin Camp, that there's Mr. Tilley's comments are not content oriented, very much formatting. And if this is going to be a 20 question survey, this is going to relieve any survey fatigue reading through his comments. So yeah, Amanda, sending those to him would be great.
So
yeah, I think Mr. Tilley's comments are awesome. I mean, I think that's really cool that he took the time to do that. So I think we should, and again, maybe y'all could just take a look at that and then figure out the best way to put that in.
Do we want the other members who haven't seen it yet, would you like me to read off a little bit more of it first, or are we just going to kind of submit it?
Well, Mr. Tilley did read it.
Oh,
for the public comments.
Okay, so that my phone wasn't working then. I think he told me he was going to read it all, but I wasn't sure if we were going to address it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
One-
Mr. Tilley read it.
Okay.
Right? I mean, am I going crazy, or that's what I remember?
No, you're not
did. That
crazy. He read it.
That was one of the first things, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Just making sure.
I'd like to point out that I did receive 2 comments from Justin. One was a rewording and another was an additional question. Justin, would you like to read what you sent me, or?
Certainly. So these are just kind of follow-ups to the some water supply and conservation-oriented questions. Just 2. So question 14 to reword into the Woodcreek potable water supply comes from, and 3 options: groundwater, Middle Trinity Aquifer, surface water, and then don't know. This, I think, these are all right answers you're giving to the folks. I think this better words question number 14 more specifically. And then lastly, an additional question, and I call this the conservation question. What water conservation information would be most useful for you and your neighbors? The list in irrigation efficiency tips, native deer resistant landscaping options, water smart appliance options, rainwater harvesting guidance, or other, please specify. Those 2.
I feel like that second question is pretty granular for what we're trying to do right now. You know, I think if that's something the city wants to assess later, that might be a good, you know, question to add in a survey that the city might send out. But that's my perspective. The first question I think is a good one.
Does anyone have any other input about that?
I think the first question is also good.
Hey, can I request that, Justin, would you read the second one more time? I apologize. I got a little bit lost there for a second.
Certainly. Okay, so what water conservation information would be most useful for you and your neighbors? Irrigation efficiency tips, native deer resistant landscaping options, water smart appliance options, rainwater harvesting guidance, or other? Please specify.
Well, I do love it. I don't necessarily, I mean, again, it's that idea of collecting more information now versus later, and I'll default to Sean's professional opinion on that. I do wonder, though, that if to kind of follow up on that same principle, maybe we could say something like, would you like to see the city incentivize these things? For example, right now we don't have a rainwater collection incentive, but a lot of other cities do, and it's actually a really great way to bring down your net impervious coverage, so that if you wanted a pool, you know, you create rainwater collection and these other things, and they could, if you did that, allow you to have a pool kind of deal.
Yeah, I mean that's very cool. I mean, I don't know anything about incentives or how that works. Sean, what's the story with that?
I don't know. I would probably just repeat what I just said. I think, yeah, I think that would be interesting for the city to know that it's not really something that we put into a comprehensive plan. But you know, I mean, it's you all. It's your decision.
So what if we just posed it as, would you like to see the city create more incentives and list it like these below? And they didn't rate them, but people could just say, you know, yes, strongly agree, more incentives, less, I don't know. I mean, I'm just trying to problem solve as a win-win.
Can I think about that? And we won't just throw the baby out with the bathwater on that. I need to see the question. Honestly, frankly, I'm very visual, and I just need to think through that a little bit more rather than kind of wordsmith it with you guys right now. If that's okay.
Certainly. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Okay.
And sorry, Kathy,
So-
you have those questions, is that right?
I did receive your questions. Yes, I did. I did not receive Deborah's questions, and I haven't seen Ray Dawn's email either. So if you guys could forward me Ray Dawn's email.
I'm doing that right now, Kathy.
Thank you. And I will follow up with you, Deborah. I will make sure that I somehow get those questions that you sent that I didn't receive. And what I propose is, so my understanding is those are the three main questions that I'm going to be incorporating into the draft that we already have. And what I can do is then send an email with all the additional questions incorporated and maybe in a different color or something like that for everybody to know these are new and to consider. Feel free to send me feedback on that email. And I'll make sure to also send that to the city by noon tomorrow for discussion next week. And I guess we can take it from there. Does that sound like a good plan?
Yes.
Yes.
And again, I'm so sorry that, I'm one that I really like to keep with schedules, and I would like to keep with the schedule as much as possible. But I think it was just important at this stage that we take a breath and, make sure that we get this survey correct. But, perhaps there's something else in the schedule that we could sort of compile together so we can keep ultimately with the schedule, if that's possible.
I had a question. We were going to distribute our flyer today, I think. I was looking at the flyer and I think it looks really good, but now all the dates are going to have to change possibly on that,
Yeah,
obviously.
Right.
And so that'll be a lot of work, but I was just kind of wondering, do you think maybe this wouldn't be a good idea, but if we could just kind of take the dates off of it and say that it'll be launched mid-February or something like that. I don't know if that may not work. Never mind. I was just trying to figure out how we could go ahead and start sending this out,
I think that we should definitely keep the date of our meeting next week on there, because that's gonna be the same, right?
Yes.
Right.
But
that's true.
But yeah, if we took the other stuff off there, then it would be more malleable.
Yeah, it wouldn't be wouldn't be worth it. It wouldn't be exact enough. Okay, so
just to clarify though, so next Thursday was going to be.
Can I interject something here? That the flyer is not on the agenda for discussion. Therefore, that the public was not provided proper notice that the flyer would be discussed. Therefore, there can't be discussion on the flyer.
Brenton, may I ask a question? Kathy and I were talking about this. Would it be possible if on the agenda we have an agenda item that just says something like discussion of any other items related to the comprehensive plan?
No, that's not definitive enough that for the citizens to know what would be discussed.
Our attorneys have advised against that phrasing. The last three attorneys have advised against that phrasing.
It's just not. This is a different fold that I'm encountering compared to other projects in the past. When using an advisory committee, I understand everything's under the Public Information Act, et cetera. But okay, I just because if we have issues that come up and it's not on the agenda, that's going to punt us to another time. So I'm just thinking out loud. I'll withdraw that question.
So
I was gonna. Brenton kind of cut out. So really, I should not have even really brought the flyer up in this meeting. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, I take that back.
So I have two things. I was told that if the council would like to create a motion to discuss something, that we could vote on it. Maybe that's incorrect, but at the very least, I would like to start a motion that we add approval of the survey flyer to next week.
Basically, this is Brenton, but all we need to do is speak with Amanda and Diane and well, they can help us formulate the agenda for next week, because there's no discussion about flyer on this agenda, but we understand that from previous emails that the flyer should be added to the next meeting.
Okay. Well, just related to that, and you might shoot me down because it's not on the agenda, but we were going to have a meeting on Saturday, and the city let us know later that you're not able to attend Saturday meetings. Is that going to be the case throughout the rest of this project, just so we know for planning purposes?
For the city, because, and this is outside the scope of discussion, but the city will not be able to attend meetings on Saturdays. And also, the other thing was that we were providing the equipment or a portion of the equipment for people to be able to complete the survey. But unless I'm not authorized to pay extra time to staff for the attendance of these meetings, unless it's during the workday, which we're already paying them.
Okay.
I'm going to take a look at the project schedule, considering this week change, and as you said, Amanda, I'm going to see if I can rework it, so we sort of stay on track. But let me take a moment to think about that.
Thank you, Kathy. And I'm so sorry, because y'all are doing such an awesome job, and we're so appreciative of everything y'all are doing. I mean, after the last meeting last week, I mean, everyone just really felt great about all your work that you're doing, and we were all just like, there's no way we could do any of this.
Totally agree.
I mean, 100%. And again, I'm really one for sticking with schedules, but I understand this one portion felt very rushed to not just the commission, but outside members of our community. And we're not trying to drag our feet on this, and we respect y'all's time so much. We just really appreciate it.
Yes, 100%. And we definitely want a survey that everybody is happy with and proud of. So.
Amanda, we may want to add to the agenda for next week, in addition to review and approval of the survey, is review and discussion of the project schedule. By then, I think Kathy will have revised that a little bit, and I think it'd be good if everybody kind of got on the same page with that, because like Deborah, I think it's totally appropriate for you to have these other questions and that sort of thing after that last meeting, but I think it's going to be on you all to understand what's coming up on the agenda. And if you feel like you need to talk with your people before that meeting, get their feedback on some issues, do it, because you need to bring that to the meeting. If we wait, if we make decisions and then a week later, committee members are bringing up other things, it's going to continue to throw wrenches in our overall calendar. So I would just ask again, Deborah, no problem with you bringing these up. This has kind of brought up this whole point of conversation, which I think is good. But I think moving forward, if you guys can just understand what's coming up in the agenda and just be prepared for that, I think that'd be helpful.
I agree. I mean, this is a learning process for all of us, and I think we're, hashing out the parameters, and I think it's very helpful. I mean,
yeah.
We just started this process, and I think it's really good that we're getting this clarification.
Yeah.
I wholeheartedly agree, and I truly apologize for the trouble that may have caused, and that wasn't my intention. And like I said, the survey wasn't made public, the draft, beforehand, so I wasn't really aware that I could share it with the public until it was posted. So that was part of that. And then I agree. I very much want to honor your time, and I would like my time honored as well, so that when we leave a meeting, that changes aren't made afterwards, creating more work for us moving forward. Everything needs to happen in the meeting, and city staff, everybody's got to speak up. And I'm a firm believer in allowing everybody their voice, and I want to hear it. I don't want to feel like I'm that you feel like I was trying to silence that. I just would prefer it happen in the meeting, so I'm not answering emails afterwards, that kind of thing.
Very well said, Deborah.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to just clarify too, Deborah, and for everybody. So, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine this morning who's actually the director of Texas APA. American Planning Association, and he's a good friend of mine. Used to be a planner down in San Marcos, etc. And I was asking him this question about the survey being public before the survey goes out. I've never experienced that before. And he also agreed in all of his planning, he's never seen that. And that it gives, I'm just going to read this. I've honestly never heard of that. It would confuse people. Here's a survey, but you can't fill it out yet. And he says, I often call this kind of thing virtue projecting transparency or false flag transparency. It can reduce survey participation. So, just keep in mind, like, sometimes it's good for citizenry to be surprised by the questions, right? You're probably going to get less participation if it's constantly out there and you let everybody see that draft. So you guys are charged with coming up with these survey questions, and we're gonna survey everybody and get as much people as we can. But I just wanted to share that comment with you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, it's 11:41, and unless anyone has anything else, I have some Zoom court coming up that I need to prepare for. So, does anyone have any other comments, or can we go ahead and adjourn?
I think we're good.
We're good. Let's adjourn.
Good.
Oh,
Thanks so much.
remember the survey flyer approval needs to be on the agenda for next week. We don't want to overlook that again.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. I also wanted to say it's so nice to see everybody without their masks on. I had no idea what you guys think.
I know.
It's true.
All right.
All right. Thanks.
Guys,
Bye-bye.
enjoy the rest of your
Thank
day.
you. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.